instead of worrying so much about, I will sell this show on this day, I just kind of told myself, I'm going to go in, be my brand of weird, and impress some people. And if they don't buy that, that's fine, but they're going to remember me. And that was super freeing. It made me feel confident. I went in and did my thing, and, often did not sell, but people start to talk about you, or they start to ask what you're up to. And that's kind of what you're always looking for.
I'm Charla Lauriston, a stand-up comedian, writer, director, and producer, and this is the Working Writer Podcast, where screenwriters, creatives, and industry insiders share their stories of breaking in hopes that it helps you along your path. I'm so excited you could join us. If you like what you hear, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Without further ado, let's get to work. What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Working Writer Podcast. Our guest today is Ajani Jackson. Ajani is a staff writer on a little show you maybe have heard of called Law and Order. It's his first TV staffing job, so it was really exciting to talk to Ajani about what it was like for him to break in. And we also get into some other things, like whether or not he thought it was worth it to go to a film school. It's a real inside baseball episode, so I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here's my interview with Ajani Jackson. But Ajani Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I wanted to start the interview by asking just for you to give the audience a sense of who you are, like where you're from, what's your cultural background.
Hey, y'all. I grew up in mid-Michigan. Actually, my parents were professors at Michigan State University. With all the baggage that comes with this week.
Wow. Wait, were they writers?
No. They were both. So they were both microbiologists.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I always joked about, like, when I was a kid, like, I think I got my imagination from the fact that they didn't really do a whole lot of, like, oh, we're going to get a babysitter for you when I was super young. They would just, like, take me someplace, stick me in the corner of the lab, and just, like, set me up with, like, beakers and whatever defunct equipment. So I would just sit in the corner, like, playing with weird stuff, just kind of entertaining myself. But yeah, so I grew up in mid-Michigan, ended up going to the University of Kansas, where I studied with some great people out there, Kevin Wilmot, who's been getting his flowers in the last couple of years, which is awesome. Then that took me to the illustrious halls of Columbia University, where I met Charla.
Yeah, as I am known. Your family sounds like the Huxtable family. Anytime I meet, like, educated Blacks, I'm just like, the Huxtables was real, for some of us.
It was a really good childhood in a whole lot of ways, in retrospect. But you also grow up around a lot of people who don't look like you, and you're the anomaly.
Right.
Stuff. It was good.
Did your family know that you wanted to write or pursue creative arts?
So I was one of those kids, like, I feel like you always hear this from writers where or filmmakers, where you're just like, every week I had a different interest. So I was like, I want to chase tornadoes, or I want to fly fighter planes, or I want to be a lawyer. And pretty quickly somebody was, and on the side, I would always be like, I'm also going to write novels too. And so it would always be like, so basically you watch Top Gun, Twister. But I think I finally, like, figured out that filmmaker was a thing around, like, 12.
That's still really young.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there is a quick, cool little story if you want to hear it. We don't have to. Basically, I had, like, lobbied my parents for months because I decided at some point I was going to watch the AFI Top 100 list, right? At like 11 years old. So then I started lobbying my parents because I watched everything on there that wasn't R-rated, because they're like, still keeping me away from that stuff. I wasn't even 13 yet. And so finally the lobbying worked. And they're like, okay, fine. We'll take you to the video store. You can pick out an R-rated movie. It's cool. And I've decided that night that I'm going to rent Platoon. And so I get the movie off the shelf, go to the front desk. There's one of these big grand video stores, RIP Video to Go. And the guy behind the counter goes, oh, did you know Oliver Stone is speaking on campus tonight? I was like, wait, what? So for those who don't know, Oliver Stone wrote and directed Platoon. So I just look up at my father. It's a school night. It's like a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, yo, we can't not go, right? So to his credit, he takes me to the event center, the Wharton Center, and I listened to Oliver Stone speak about his whole career up to that point, because Any Given Sunday was coming out, and I never looked back. Like I was set. I knew what it was from then on.
What a little cutie patootie little Ajani was. Taking his dad.
And then I saw Spike Lee came to the same theater the very next year, so I was in the front row, and
man, that must have been crazy.
I was set.
Well, I love your idyllic, adorable childhood love of film. I imagine that's why you decided to go to film school. Like, what was the decision making when it came to going to film school?
Coming out of University of Kansas, let me be clear. Sorry, you're going to hear my kids in the background right now.
All right, cool. We'll talk about them later.
I was coming out of University of Kansas, and it's a place where there are some amazing professors, and I think what you often find in programs like that, like so much of what you're doing when you're going to one of these big programs or known programs is you're buying the name, because like there were fantastic instructors at University of Kansas, but I was coming out and I was like, every story I've ever heard of like, oh, I made it in the film business was either my parents knew somebody, or I went to NYU, or I went to USC.
Yeah.
I basically took a year off and decided, let me just write and see what I got, start to apply to some grad school programs. And if I can't get into a top 5 program, I'll just hang it up. And so I just kind of wrote, worked here and there, and ended up getting into Columbia. Because I just kind of knew there wasn't going to be any name recognition coming out of University of Kansas, so that was kind of how I carried it. But luckily, Columbia, extended their hands, and I fell.
Yeah. How would you describe the experience of going to Columbia?
It was grueling. I mean, it was incredibly grueling. Like, you remember, like for those first 2 years, students are zombies. Like, you're just like, what is sleep? What is English? How does this world work? And of course, what the hell is money?
So much money.
so much money. So much money, y'all. So much money, y'all. It's probably gonna get said a few more times. I'm gonna lift up my mic.
So much
money, y'all.
It's so much money.
So much money. It was one of the best experiences in my life. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I also think that it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. Because you go and there are these people that are giving you amazing ideas, and they're giving you space to learn, and you don't have to worry about anything but just doing your stuff, figuring out who you are, all that stuff.
Which is amazing. That's an amazing experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, frankly, that was worth it. Like, see what happens when the loan people come after me, when Biden fails to forgive my debt. But as far as where I was sitting at the time and where I'm sitting now, it was definitely worth it.
Okay.
Those first 2 years were easily the hardest things I had done to that point in my life.
What's so hard about the first 2 years? What is it that is taking up all your time?
So it's workload. Yeah. I mean, you're doing at Columbia, at least when I started, it was what I want to say 5 classes.
That's
or
a
like
lot. Yeah.
whatever it was like a
That's a
full
lot.
course load.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then every course, like, so you're in that first semester, you're writing short film scripts, you're writing a feature film treatment, but
Oh,
then you're
wow.
also taking all these lecture courses, and then you're also doing film exercises. But of course, with film exercises, that means you're writing and directing and
Yeah.
editing all those film exercises all that time. And then you're also going to screenings and other lectures and just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how the hell to like navigate New York and all that stuff.
Right.
Oh, and then of course you're doing directing actors scenes, right? So you're
Yeah.
trying to recruit actors to come in for free to do your scene.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you might cast them in your short film that they also won't get paid for.
Yeah. What a scam.
Yeah, and then you're also learning to produce on top of, like, it's just, it's a lot.
Yeah. You know what? It's still valuable. I'm like what I was saying, it's what a scam, but it's very valuable. It sounds like this was like a super immersive experience and that you must have learned a ton. Yeah.
Incredibly immersive. My daughter.
She's talking. She's got a lot to say. Yeah.
She does have a lot to say, and she's so sassy. I love
it.
She's so sassy.
I think either way, it sounded like it was a really immersive experience and that it was worthwhile. It just was expensive, which all these schools are.
Yeah, I will say one thing though is like, it's only expensive. It's not only expensive. It's expensive. It's only worth it if you, if you kind of go in and take it seriously, kind of thing. Because like, look, there were a whole lot of people, and you probably, like, if you look, you can figure out who these people were. Like, there were a lot of people who came in, and like, if you show up for screenwriting class and you haven't written your 20 some odd pages, I'm looking at you like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you just
why
spent
even here?
$800
Yeah.
on a class that you're not doing anything. Like, today it was $800.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since we're talking about advice, by the way, one thing I will say is one of the most useful things you can do if you do decide to go to film school is you need to figure out what your weaknesses are. Use that time to figure out what your weaknesses are.
That's great.
And then concentrate on attacking those things as much as possible. Because like, I went in knowing I can write characters, I can write scenes. I'm good at dialogue. I'm terrible at structure.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, I knew that, and every single thing I did was trying to track down which professors could teach me structure.
Yeah.
And which professors weren't afraid to just be prescriptive, because I think that's another thing, like, and no shade, none whatsoever, this is just how I learn. Like, a lot of the programs that I've seen are afraid to be prescriptive. Like, whether it's in directing classes or writing classes, like, just tell somebody what good dialogue or what a shot that's appropriate or whatever. Just tell them what that is, and then let them riff after that. Because like, I came in and I'm like, no, I don't want to be like objective and find my style in a vacuum. Like, tell me what works, and then I'll figure the rest out. So I think like the best advice I can give is that.
You know what's interesting about that? I didn't go to film school, so I don't have that reference, but I find that the industry isn't particularly prescriptive. Like, the market will tell you what is selling, what is quality, because you're seeing what gets made, you're seeing what makes money when it gets made and what doesn't make money. So you'll see what is going to be produced again. But over and over, you get very little feedback. You just get very little feedback. I have found as a working writer that is direct. Like, you will get suggestions on how to make it better. You'll get a lot of circular talk about what might not be working. But I think that, it's interesting that at your film school in particular, that you found things were not prescriptive, but it's mirrored in the industry, in that when you do start working, you don't always get a lot of direct feedback and like, you don't always know what you did wrong. There isn't a lot of guidance. So you kind of have to train yourself to be okay without a lot of explicit instruction. And that is just the work, that is just the work of being a writer. I have found that I've just, and it doesn't go well with my type A, need to, I don't even know if I'm really type A. I just know that I need parameters, but sometimes there really are none other than obvious ones like money. But
yeah. No, I'm the exact same way. And to reference Columbia once more, one of the things that I really appreciated about it was that it was just a dedicated workshop structure. So it wasn't professors, I know I just said, they're not prescriptive, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that was amazing is the professors are essentially just leading conversations unless they're lecturing. So because of that, you learn to find your voice in terms of giving notes and taking notes. And you learn pretty quickly that when there are 6 different voices in the room talking about something that is personal to you or talking about how they view your perspective on something, I think you learn pretty quickly that you can almost never take someone's suggestion and whatever note they're giving, you can never take at face value, right? And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, because as soon as you get out here, the margin for error is so minuscule, because an exec doesn't have, I shouldn't say doesn't have time. I'm just going to excuse them for this stuff because I don't think it's necessary. But they don't have, I'm just going to say they don't have time to say, okay, go back and do it this way.
Yeah.
But the other thing that you always have to be conscious of, and I think this is what you're speaking to, is the fact that so many of the people that are going to be judging your work are not writers. And so many of them have never necessarily told stories. Now, that's not true of a writer's room, but if you're pitching material.
Yeah.
And so they'll say, oh yeah, well, I didn't like this scene. And I'm like, okay, so what you mean is that my protagonist isn't likable because I had them I don't know, punching puppies in the face in the first 5 pages. Okay, I get that. No, but that's not what you said,
Right. But the other part of that is that, nobody actually sits you down and explains, okay, this person is not a writer, but what they are is a marketer. They have to sell this to somebody else. And so what they're looking for is what is going to sell this to my boss? How am I going to describe this scene that makes them excited so that they know that we're going to make money off of this? Because ultimately it's a business and that's what you're doing. And nobody knows what they're looking for. These execs actually don't know what they're looking for, what they're hoping. They're crossing their fingers that they hired a writer who has originality, who has a voice, and who has the skills to basically translate something that's untranslatable, to put something down on the page that they love, but they are surprised by that, and it's a really hard job, and nobody actually really explains that to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're doing 2 different things, and they're not writers and they don't know how to write, but they do something else, and everybody's just doing their job essentially.
And I think there's also something to be said for execs speak a certain, there's kind of a language to execs, you know what I mean? One of the best survival skills you can ever come to is just learning to speak that language. Learning to strip things down to something that's very simple, but then essentially being able to sprinkle firecrackers or candy throughout your speech, where you're saying, okay, I know when I say this word, that's going to trigger this, and making things just lean,
Yeah, I totally agree. And also just being yourself as much as possible in the work, and putting your personality into it, because it's something that they can't do, is be you and write the way that you write. But I totally agree with that. And something else that you said earlier when you were talking about the thing that makes Columbia worthwhile is, actually being engaged with the work while you're there, and essentially just using the time you're there to really do the work. And I actually think that that's the case for anything. Cause I remember when I was taking classes, I was taking 101 improv and sketch classes at UCB, and the people, or even at the People's Improv Theater, wherever it was that I was taking it, and the people that were really holding back. All I could think was like, I mean, even just for myself, like, because it's so nerve-wracking to do improv and get out on stage and perform in front of somebody. That was something that like really freaked me out. But I would just think about, I just spent like $400. Like, I could barely pay rent. It doesn't need to be like a Columbia amount of money. Like, even just $400 that I just had to pay at the time, that was so much money to me. I'm gonna do my best, even though I'm scared because I'm gonna use this money. I know my therapist told me one time that like I said something in therapy, and she's like, "Oh, you're really honest." And I was like, "You mean people come in here and lie? You mean people come in here and pay you to lie?" I was like, I'm not making lie in therapy money yet, okay, lady. I thought that was crazy. So now that you've gone to film school and you've broken into TV, which we'll talk about your how you broke in next, but after having gone to film school and breaking in, what would you say are the pros and cons of going to film school?
Giant, enormous con is money. It's money. You come out of there, you're easily in six figures. You're probably in multiple six figures. I'm not gonna sit here and tell everybody how much I owe in loans, but
I know other Columbia grads.
Yeah, no, I know you know. I'm just not trying to have people checking my pockets. Yeah,
it's basically like a house in Texas. It's like
shoot.
It's basically like and not even in Austin anymore. Like you gotta go out.
Like it'd be like a good be a good like I could buy a nice house off of that.
Yeah, basically. Right.
And I realize I sound like a jerk talking about execs. I love and respect execs. I just also, I've stared down their barrels many times.
Learning how to work with execs is something that like somebody needs to talk to you about like before you have your first. And that's the thing. It's like, there's no real place for that role. It's not like your rep is going to be like, okay, so this is your first open writing assignment and you're going to have to be working with an exec. You truly just have to work on you just got to learn by doing.
Yeah.
The other thing that nobody really explains is that, when you first start getting that criticism, it feels really personal because this is your personality, it's your voice, you're putting yourself into the work, and this person's coming in, they're not even a writer, and they're trashing it. It's hard to forget that. It's easy to forget that. It's easy to forget that, like, this is not personal. This is about, hey, I'm going to have to sell this to my boss. And also, I don't know what I'm looking for. And also, I might not even know what I'm doing. I just started this job. Like, there's a lot of, like, stupid shit going on,
Well, and I mean, there are also like all kinds of execs. Like I've had amazing execs who were just like incredibly insightful. I've also had execs who like often contradicted themselves and then like blamed me for it in meetings with people that were higher than them. So, like whatever, like but I also get that, as you said, and it is a point worth repeating, that like, it is not my job to market it. But I do need to understand where that marketing is going to come from. So like one of the most useful things you can do is like learn to think and speak like an exec.
Absolutely. And, just to mention like all of this miscommunication, all of this, whatever that's going on between you and your exec while you're doing this project, all of it, there's a blanket of like, I need to work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get fired, essentially, which, doesn't happen very often. But I think there's always that fear out there in general as a writer that, I can get fired. But I actually think that, I'm grateful that this is something that has really gone away as I've continued, because I think that like continued fear of, I'm going to get fired, like it really can, have a damper on things when you first start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's like one of those things that like, I really hope people get over quickly and don't let it really like hold them back, because just like this fear doesn't need to be there all the time. There's ways to like make sure that you are secure. I think that like anybody, we want security. Like that's like a human need. Like we want to feel secure. We have kids, we have mortgages, we have rent, we have lives, you know what I mean? So you want to have a sense of security. But unfortunately, in this particular line of work, you have to give it to yourself. And no one's going to give it to you.
And frankly, like you want to feel like they're confident in you. You know what I mean? And I'm still very much at the beginning of my career. I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of development even before I got into writers' rooms. But you always want to remember that your execs are your customers. But the other thing that kind of goes with that is, a few years ago, even like last year before, there were very, very, very few projects across my desk that I did not jump at or try and pitch on. And like, I'm glad I did because I needed the practice. But I also now recognize much more quickly, I might not be right for this, and that's okay.
Oh, that's super valuable.
Yeah, like one thing you do not want to do is like set a North Star and realize that your North Star is very different from your exec's North Stars.
Yeah.
Like you got to make sure those things line up, because you're setting yourself up for failure and it's going to just rip you apart.
I mean, it sounds like this is all like good experience that you've had. It's basically just, you got to get your reps in, you got to get the experience and learn. And then you can approach it with much less nerves and much less like not knowing what the hell you're doing.
I think it's kind of like anything else, right? Like if you're, I don't know, if you're learning to play basketball for the first time, well, there's learning how to dribble. And then there's once you know how to dribble and shoot, and you can kind of start to like play the 3-dimensional chess version of whatever that is, right? Like, okay, so this word didn't hit, so let me change how I pitch this part of what it, like, and I'm getting deep into the weeds, but like, the more reps you put in, and the more stages you get on, like often the other thing that I'll say is, one thing that became really useful to me, instead of worrying so much about, I will sell this show on this day, I just kind of told myself, I'm going to go in, be my brand of weird, and impress some people. And if they don't buy that, that's fine, but they're going to remember me. And that was super freeing. It made me feel confident. I went in and did my thing, and, often did not sell, but people start to talk about you, or they start to ask what you're up to. And that's kind of what you're always looking for.
I love that, Ajani. I don't know if that's good or bad that you're like, I want them to remember me. I don't know. I want to be memorable too. But yeah, I want you. Finger's always crooked. Mine is always crooked as fuck. Whenever I do my Denzel finger,
it's always like thumb to finger. It's like, you will remember me.
You will remember me. All right. Well, Johnny, do you have any more pros and cons of going to film school?
Oh, right. Pros. So, well, I guess I started with cons. I mean, the biggest con is money. I guess you could say that another con is time, but I don't necessarily buy that. So I'm going to retract that as soon as I said it.
Okay. So biggest con is money. Now, are there,
biggest con is money.
It seems like there are pros.
Yeah. So to me, it's kind of the peace of mind that you're doing nothing but working on your craft is a pro. And by the way, I would say this for anybody going to any kind of school, by the way, remember, if you're going to college, you are the customer. So in any given room, do not leave that room until you got the knowledge that you paid for, right? So if that means like cornering a professor or doing whatever, don't let them walk away until you have gotten the answers that you need.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I did that every time, but that's always
as much as possible.
Yeah.
That was the blackest part of this conversation. I was like, you better go get your education now.
About to get more blacker.
That was worse. That was the worst. I'm not going to cut it. But just know that I know that was the worst.
That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. But then the other thing that I consider to be kind of a hidden benefit, but is probably not that hidden, is you graduate. I mean, if you weren't just terrible to people, you graduate with kind of a social group.
Yeah.
That group, like, they'll be there and they'll help you in ways that you may not necessarily understand when you're leaving. But like, these are the people that are going to end up in your writers groups and stuff like that. These are the people that are going to recommend you for jobs that will keep you alive when you are just on the edge. And, you know, they're people that'll try and recommend you for jobs or frankly, like, they'll help you get reps. Like that community is pretty amazing. And, you know, it's something that you just don't get if you just come out and do the thing on your own. Like, I'm sure there are other communities that you can come to, but, you know, having the name, especially of one of these schools, not trying to be an elitist, but like having the name of any school on your back means that there's somebody else in Hollywood that gets it, gets where you're from, gets who you are. And at least there's that in that you can use. And the last thing that I think is pretty clear is just the name. Like, especially if you're going to one of these big schools, Columbia, USC, UCLA, Chapman, NYU.
It helps.
And it's funny because, like, it helps up to a certain point. And then when you reach the point where you're about to start working or you are working, nobody cares anymore.
Right.
You know, especially like on the indie circuit or whatever, that can help, or, you know, it's nice on a resume. But then when you start to get to the point where, you know, you're competing for jobs or whatever, you're in open writing assignments or bake-offs, don't nobody care anymore. But, you know,
I don't know what a bake-off is, but I agree.
do you want me to define bake-off?
What is it? What's a bake-off?
So a bake-off is like, I mean, it's essentially an open writing assignment, right? Like, but it just means that when you're going in and you're going to pitch your version of the show or whatever, or the movie, it's essentially a blast everywhere. Like, there are going to be dozens of people pitching on it as opposed to like just you or you and three people.
Oh, I didn't know that was called a bake-off.
Yeah.
All right. So much like industry lingo that I don't know.
What?
Yeah. What did I just learn in the Grand Crew Writers Room? Oh my God. Do you know, like, I think Bruce Willis came up with it. It's like the fluff words at the beginning of the scene that like don't really mean anything. It's just like, you know, now my poor memory's on display.
I've never heard this. I'm very those are some of my favorites.
It's called the chuffa. It's called the chuffa at the top. Yeah, that's that's what I just learned. That's the newest lingo I learned in the Grand Cruise Writers Room. The chuffa at the top. It's just like,
is that specific to comedy? Because that's like, I've never heard
apparently
it before.
Bruce Willis said it on like the set of like freaking Die Hard or some shit. Like, what's the chuffa at the top or something? I have no. You know, it's like one of those conversations that I caught the last tail end of in the room because I was like off in my head thinking about some dumb shit, and I learned chuffa. So thank God I remembered that, or I was gonna be so upset with myself.
That's so interesting.
So you're saying that the pros and cons are like the big con is the money, but the pros are that you get to spend a bunch of time thinking and doing film, thinking about film, doing film, writing, and just like finding your voice really. Then you also get this big, huge community, which is also invaluable. So I love that. I think that's great. And I'm so glad that you made the most of Columbia. I found being at Columbia as a staff member, and then also breaking into TV. I always find that like, I always look at my trajectory with the people that went to Columbia as so interesting because I feel like I did like the poor man's version of what you guys were doing. But at the time, I didn't even know I was doing it. You know, like I didn't really know like what I was doing. I was just like doing comedy, and I was just like, because I just like hated my day job. I was just like, I just want to do something else. You know, I truly did not know what was happening. I never imagined that I would do that I would break into TV because I'm like, I'm such an immigrant. I'm such a Haitian. I was born in Haiti. I just come from such a Haitian background. Like that is just not what my family knew anything about. It's just not my trajectory. I just did not grow up in American culture in that way, like, consuming American culture in that way. And then like seeing myself as somebody that could do that kind of thing. So I just always find it so interesting because I do feel like I'm just like an example of like the alternative, like, yes, you can go to film school and it is helpful. And if it is something that is for you, great. If it's something that's accessible to you, if it's something that because I never even thought about going to film school. I went to college for international affairs and global studies. I thought I was going to be a lawyer or a diplomat or something. I interned for my state rep in high school. I interned for Charlie Rango in college. Like I really thought I was going to be a lawyer straight up, and that maybe I would run for office one day or something like that. Whatever. I'm a Libra. We do diplomatic shit. You know what I mean? Like that's what I do. I love to talk, that's what I do. And so I just always find it, I love the fact that we can come from such different places and there's a place for us in the industry. And I think that that's the big thing about the example of like, you don't have to come from a film school, and then you also can, yeah. And there's room for both stories. There's room for both backgrounds. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to ask you about what it's been like since you've broken in. I'm quickly interrupting this episode to tell you about theworkingwriter.com. It's a resource I created for screenwriters and creative entrepreneurs that includes a blog, a course, and this podcast. Right now, when you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get my Get Repped mini course for free. I cover what agents and managers do, how to know when you're ready for a rep, and how to find the right rep for you. If you're working on breaking into TV, I hope it gives you some concrete steps to get to the next level in your journey. Go to theworkingwriter.com, that's WERKING, and sign up for the mailing list now to download the Get Repped mini course for free. Are you a screenwriter who's feeling stuck or lost or just wanting to take your career to the next level? Then you need to check out the Working Writer School. The Working Writer School is an online course and community I created that trains screenwriters to become creative entrepreneurs who can confidently navigate building a professional network, attract managers and agents, manage their personal finances, pitch a TV show, and consistently produce original work they're proud of. When you join with one of our flexible membership options, you'll get the course, plus live monthly virtual workshops with writers from Portlandia, American Dad, The Last OG, and more. Go to theworkingwriter.com/school and sign up today to get training, mentorship, and support from a community of writers just like you. Now, back to the episode. So, Ajani, you are in your first writer's room. Yes. Is this your first year in this writer's room?
It is my first year, my first writer's room.
Year. So awesome. So tell me the story about how you broke into this room.
So it was actually pretty simple. I I alluded before to the fact that, I've done a bunch of development. Like I moved out to LA in 2016 and kind of got into kind of doing a bunch of development, TV development mostly. And I kind of stumbled into that. Like I got to the point where I was pitching series at most of the studios and stuff like that. And that was great. But I was always like a little part of me was terrified that I was going to get shoved into the role of being the number two or the showrunner or whatever. And I had never been in a room. So that was absolutely terrifying. But so basically once I found reps, I just kind of made it very clear, like, it's time to start making some money at this. Because by the way, when you're doing all these pitches and stuff like that at that particular level, you're doing it for free. So like there was a point where I was working 4 jobs, like no joke, 4 jobs, to essentially fund my pitching habit.
Yeah.
Fund my pitching habit while I was working with big studios and big producers.
Yeah, it's a dirty little secret that I don't know if it's that much of a secret. I think there's actually like a lot of expectation, which I think coming from real jobs is shocking. Like how much you're expected to do free work. Even after you've staffed already, even after you've been working for a while, you're expected to do essentially free work. It's kind of nuts.
What? It's not. It's not going to change right now. Sure, don't tell me this. No.
Well, maybe it'll change because I just said it. So maybe my word means a lot.
Hey, it means everything to me, Shar.
My word changes things. So hopefully, hopefully the more aware people are, they can say no, and maybe people will be forced to pay, even if they paid a little bit for it. You got it in the budget. You can pay like $2,000 to this person.
Always there.
Like you can do a grand for like, the first draft and then another grand for the second, like pay a little some, you can.
I am not going to put those numbers out because I want them to be higher, but yes, you can.
We got to start somewhere. You know what I mean?
We do.
And if I don't say a grand, they'll start at a penny. They'll be like, all right, 1 penny for the first draft.
That's true.
1.5 pennies for the second.
Because it's always funny. Like nobody has money, but everybody's driving nice cars and spending expensive accounts. And I'm like, okay.
It's just like any United States corporation. They do not want to spend any money if they don't have to, unless you literally wring it from their hands. Like, it's extremely corporate. And it's just like, give me money. I know you have it. Pay money.
And the other thing that I think is probably worth mentioning to some extent is people will always, non-writers, I have always told me like, just concentrate on one project. It's cool. Just only do that thing. And if you concentrate on only one project, unless you're in a room, you're going to starve. Like that's just not, it's not realistic essentially.
Yeah.
Like, cause I've always had those people that were like, the producers that aren't paying you are often like, this is all you should be doing.
This is like very much not an internship. This is full work. It's like, and there is an expectation that you make it your whole life, which is completely unreasonable, for being paid nothing. Mm-hmm. It isn't feasible for so many of us to just do free work and not do anything else. Mm-hmm. It just makes it, to me, it's like, one of the things that I think is a vestige of like white supremacy in the Hollywood industry. It really is just like these corporations where there are unpaid internships and they expect you, it's just like this way to like, I don't know. I think it's another way of like blindly keeping people out while saying that you want diversity. Is just like, if you want diversity, then you need to be able to reach people from diverse socioeconomic classes. That people from certain backgrounds have been at more disadvantage. Like, this is not even like a platitude. This is numbers. This is facts. These are facts. This is reality.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is just like the way that the industry postures as if it is not exactly like the rest of corporate America. It is exactly like the rest of corporate America. You take these creatives with these big dreams and, our time is worthwhile. Our work is worthwhile. Our skill set is worthwhile. And it's just like, don't try to front like you're not exactly like the rest of corporate America.
Well, and let me chill.
I have no chill.
Do it.
I have no chill.
Don't rest. We're here.
You know what it is? My student loans are paid off.
For real? I'm so jealous of you.
I'm just, they are.
Wow. Okay.
And it makes me maniacal. It makes me like.
Look, I can. Here's the thing. I can talk. Yeah. I don't know if I can curse, but I can talk a lot of shit. But at some point, the loan company is gonna be like, "Hey, that's an apartment."
Yeah,
it's right. Not that nice, but it's an apartment.
What's that in your fridge? That food?
Oh, you got food? No, that ain't food, man.
Oh my god.
speaking of the corporateness of Hollywood, one of the things that I always tell people if ever I'm teaching or whatever, one of the best things you can do is treat yourself like a product, or treat yourself. Product is probably the best way to put it. And what I mean by that, it harkens back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about having to work on multiple projects, especially in development, because what we know is that people don't want you until you're in demand. Like, people don't want you until you don't need them. So even if you very badly do need them, if they can look on paper and say, oh, you know, Ajani is doing X with this big movie director, and is doing Y with this company, and is doing Z with this producer, whatever. Like, it was so funny because for at least a few years, I was sitting there, and if you looked at my resume, like, I was balling. Did not one of them damn jobs was paying me $1.
Yeah.
But it means something when, like, people can look at a piece of paper and say, oh, like, you're really busy. And it's always funny. You walk into those generals and they're like, you're so busy. How do you even, like, are you sure you can handle our project? And I'm like, those people haven't called in months. I'm waiting on them to tell me when the next meeting is. Like, yes, I can do your thing, but
I need
of course
your
I'm gonna
project.
tell you I'm busy.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm dying.
Yeah, exactly. And you just walk in like, yeah, I'm so busy. Oh yeah, that big person that you've heard of, they're mad cool. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, baby, you know, it's all good.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, because I do think that there's so much hustling that you have to do. You essentially have to hustle, you know, and the hustle can't be taught. Like, it just has to, you just got to be hungry, homie. Like, sometimes, like, I'll see some people who are just like, Charla, I want to do this. And I'm just like, I don't know, you look super sleepy. Like, it's a hustle. It's a hustle, homie. Like, you know, and sometimes you just got to go for it. You know, you really just got to go for it.
But okay, so how I got into this particular room. So basically, you know, my antenna had been out for a while. Like, you know, I got a manager, fired my first manager. My first manager was great, whatever. But it just kind of wasn't moving stuff forward.
How did you get your first manager?
So my very first manager was an introduction. This person was fantastic. I still love this person to this day. I sent him a script that I was kind of unsure about, which was not a good move, actually, in retrospect. But he read it that weekend and called me and was like, yo, we should work together.
Nice.
And that felt amazing because, you know, it had been crickets for the first year and a half or so. So I started working with him, but it kind of just hit a point where it wasn't, it wasn't working. I'm, you know, I don't want to go into any bigger reasons.
Absolutely.
Like, it wasn't working. I still think this person's fantastic. And I then co-wrote a script with my buddy. And after I had left this first manager, I co-wrote a script with my buddy, and his manager picked me up. And from there, I, you know, we had been strategizing for a while. I was picking up development here and there. And then I just told him, like, look, I need an agent. Like, let's fill out this team. Let's do all this stuff. I kind of picked up a lawyer the same way I picked up my first manager. And then my manager got me my agent. And the first thing I told my agent is, I just need work, bro. Like, let's get this going. I will say
I think that's everybody's first words.
Yeah, right. Well, I told him two things. I said, I need work, and I also was feeling myself a little bit, but I think I kind of just needed to tell myself that I was a freight train, because basically at a certain point I told him, I'm like, look, somehow, some way, I'm starting to get into rooms that I don't belong in.
Oh, okay.
If you can't get me into more rooms that I don't belong in, I don't need you. Like, if I'm just gonna punch my weight, I don't need to give you 10%. So, like, I think also, frankly, I was like, look, this is the vision that I see for my career. If you don't think that's possible, that's fine. Like, this is just what I'm looking for. So like, what I need for you to do is put me in rooms that I don't belong in. I will not embarrass you. I will always make an impression. But if you can't do that, and if you can't commit to me on that level that you see like helping me punch farther and farther above my weight, it's not really a reason for us to do this. Which was a little bit more of a gamble than I probably should have taken in that particular meeting, since I didn't have an agent. But he was down, and he signed me up, and it took a while because, again, like, I think the other thing that people often forget in the thinking about reps is it's such a great milestone when you finally get representation, and you think that you made it. And I think that's something that happens basically at every level of success in Hollywood, right? Is like, oh, I sold a script, I made it. Oh, I got a manager, I made it. Oh, I sold a TV show, I made it. None of those things mean you made it. None of them. None of them.
Yeah.
I always think of my reps kind of like, and maybe this is my extra machismo bravado bullshit, but like, I always think of my reps like a gun, and like, but like my work and my projects and whatever I do out in the world, like that's loading it with ammunition, right? Like, I can't expect them to get me, X big project on the street when I haven't given them anything or shown them anything or talked to anybody. Like, as you were talking about before, you still have to do so much hustling when you have people hustling for you. It's like, just because you have reps, you need to keep hustling, and that is all there is to it.
Absolutely. I love the analogy you used with the gun, your reps being the gun and you being the ammunition, because it's so true. Like, I really advise writers who are trying to break in to have at least 3 scripts under their belt, 2 pilots, whether it's a comedy or drama, and a feature, because that muscle of writing is going to be really necessary after you get repped, because what you realize quickly is that you're driving the train still. You're the steam and the steam engine. Like, your work is the steam and the steam engine. You have to continue to produce at a high level. And I think a lot of writers come in unprepared for that. They are not prepared to continue to produce, on their own, with their own motivation.
Yes.
People just really don't know that. And I've seen it I've seen it put a real damper in a lot of people's careers. And you can be somebody who doesn't know it, and then you have to like hustle and figure it out and start doing it. But it's so much better. I think I really always advise anybody that asks me, I think it's so much better to just come out the gate, like, having ideas, having things that you want to make, and understanding that, this is like a long-term career. This is a marathon. Like, you have a long time to create a lot of things. You don't have to rush yourself, but you do need to continue to create and to make things and to produce things and continue to work on your craft and build yourself up.
So actually, by the way, one more big benefit of film school that I think is maybe not apparent is, if you do it right, you come out with a whole bunch of samples.
Yeah.
I'm still like, 2 out of my 3 samples came out of film school.
That's great.
Or out of my 4 samples came out of film school. Now, granted, I've rewritten them since then, but the point is that, like,
you had them.
That's where they were born, and just having something, because like, I think another mistake that a lot of people make is, we're dreamers by nature. So like, oh, I'm excited about this project that I'm thinking about, and so somebody says, okay, send it to me. You're like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna hit you in like 2 months. Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, no, that person's already forgotten about you.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta, and it's just gotta be ready to hit send. Like, hit send during the conversation. Oh, it's already sent to you. It's in your inbox.
it's an epidemic. Like, of people talking without work to back it up. It's why I always tell people, like, your work speaks for yourself. Do the work. Have something to show people, because that's another thing, is like there's a lot of people just talking about what they're wanting to do, and they don't have the actual work. And no shade, you know what I mean? Like when you're first getting started, you're first starting to be like, you know what, I think I might want to do this. Of course you're talking about it. So there's no shade. It's just that a lot of people say it. It's just that.
And by the way, for what it's worth, like, life really gets in the way of this stuff.
For sure.
Like, when you have a major change in your life, like having kids, you will absolutely get to a point where you have to reteach yourself all of the good habits that you had as a writer. And you may find that, like, how you write is completely different. Like the things that you need to be happening around you to write can be completely different, and it can be terrifying,
Yeah. What have you found that has changed since you've had a kid in terms of your creative flow?
So I used to be able to conjure tone like that, right? Like, tone is usually how I control everything. So when I start a project, I build a playlist, and I can just turn on that playlist and go. And usually what I would do, like, especially in film school, is I would put on a movie that had a similar tone in some ways. I'd be listening to the music or the playlist, whatever that I put together, and then I just disappear into the work. And frankly, I refer to myself as a binge writer, because, like, once I have enough things figured out, this is before me, because I'm not this anymore. I could knock out 100 pages in like a week or two. Like, that was not a problem. They wouldn't be good yet, but that's fine, because you can just speed through it or whatever. Now I have to be so much more intentional. I mean, and part of it is that the things that I'm writing now are much more intellectual, and like overtly intellectual. So there's just much more forethought, but also I can't afford to spend the entire day chilling on my couch,
right,
with the TV on and the music in my headphones.
Yeah,
like, that just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, like, sure, you can do it sometimes if you like really need to bang something out, if you're on a deadline, but like, that's not always going to work.
Right.
So sometimes you have to learn to be incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
Which is not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how meandery this conversation is. Let's go back. Let's meander back to
how I got onto the show.
Yes.
I feel like I don't know. This sounds like we're on Drink Champs or something like that.
I know.
We're both stone sober, y'all. We just miss it. I just love.
You're sober. I definitely.
Did you? Oh,
I smoke weed in my home daily.
I'm so happy.
That's where I'm at in my life. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not going to judge myself. That's the tip we're on right now. Is a non-judgmental.
I think it's good. I've been looking for a substance.
I don't know if it's good, but I know that I've done it.
The grass is green.
Yeah.
On the meathead side.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is gonna be murder if you actually have to edit it, but
I can't. This is uneditable. But you know what's I think is funny is, like, talking to writers has been a true joy, because we're all so meandering. We really are, but.
And by the way, that's I'm sure this has come up before, but that's what rooms are like, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. It hasn't come up before yet, but this is what rooms are like. It's just like, so meandering. And as the showrunner that I am in my spirit, I always got to stay on task.
What you mean in your spirit? I don't think it's a spirit. I think you're just seeing the future, Char.
In my spirit, I'm in charge all the time. that is how it is supposed to be. And if it is not that way, I do not like it, basically.
The world will catch up.
That's what it feels like. And it just kind of feels like, yeah, I have to just like own it. Like I like to be in charge. That is my spirit.
Damn right.
That's my spirit animal. Boss.
So my agent was sending out my samples, had a few showrunner meetings. Most of them went really well. But I just never kind of was getting the job. And I'm actually wondering how much, I'm kind of wondering if I should if I should invoke the show or if I should just speak vaguely. Who knows?
There are so many of them. We don't even have to say which one. You're in the universe.
Yeah. Well,
you're in the Dick Wolf universe.
Yes, I'm in the Dick Wolf universe.
I was going to introduce you. I was going to put that you were going to show your intro. Do you not want me to do that?
No, you can. I'm just this is maybe my second ever interview or conversation or whatever. So it's just you're always getting used to playing double dutch and oh, I said the thing about executives. Shouldn't have said that shit.
You know what? So this has come up in every episode, and again, I don't know if we'll keep this part of the conversation, but I don't actually think what we're saying is that bad. It's common knowledge, so.
Well, I mean, sure, but
yeah.
anybody who wants to can get mad about anything. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I'm putting in the universe. If this podcast becomes just the biggest thing since black sliced bread,
okay,
pumpernickel, y'all.
I was like, did you just curse my podcast? Because I've never heard of black sliced bread.
I did not. No, pumpernickel bagels. They're the truth. Pumpernickel bagels, it's the truth.
Jesus Christ, Ajani. I was like, nobody's ever heard of black sliced bread.
Until now.
Yeah. Till now.
Bagels, mm-hmm. Bagels are bread.
Sure.
So, then you just never know. Somebody's going to be like, oh, I worked with him once. Maybe he's talking about me. And but let me also say, for the record, even though I don't know if you're going to keep that part, I actually do love basically everybody that I've ever worked with and would work with them again. And if I wouldn't, then they'll find out when they need to.
I mean, maybe that's what we should preface all of this with, is that we like what we do and we want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
We also want to prepare new writers for what to expect, Yeah. And I think that telling people the truth is more helpful, Yeah. And I think also sometimes it is really inefficient, and that is across the board. I've worked with a lot of different places, and the way that it is done can just be inefficient. And I think that that's just real,
Yeah, and we'll, I'm sure we'll definitely have offline conversations about companies and stuff like that. But it's also the hindsight in a lot of these things that I've done is really, I'm going to say pronounced because I just forgot where my sentence was going. But I will never sit here and say, oh, I was perfect in every single one of these. You know what I mean? There's always going to be some misstep I made or some misconception that I had or whatever, especially because this was me before I've been in a room before, I don't know how many things that I've pitched or how many things I've developed, but I did a bunch of it and I didn't know what the hell I was doing until maybe the last one, which didn't sell. Yeah. So, it is what it is. I have sold a show to a network, but okay, you did one. Good job, Junior.
Yeah.
So I got on this show because so my agent had been sending stuff out, and I basically got an interview over at Wolf Entertainment, Dick Wolf's company. And basically I had an interview with two different showrunners for three different shows. And well, so it was kind of a 2-step thing. So I interviewed with the Wolf producers, like the Wolf execs, and they were fantastic. And it was just kind of getting the vibe of them getting the vibe of me. And then, as I gather what their process was they passed you along to the showrunners from there. And so 2 showrunners took the bit, whatever, so to speak. And so I interviewed for 3 shows. And I got the OG, the number 1.
That's really cool. Really cool, Johnny. Congrats. I'm so happy for you. That is such a big fish to catch your first time out. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
How has your experience been since you've been staff? Like, so you've crossed to the other side essentially.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, right? Like, because I sold a show and I was like, oh, this is my big break. But that's not what my reps told me. When my reps told me I got this job, they're like, this is your break. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. It's honestly been amazing.
I love that.
And yeah, like it's one of those things where you have a vision for whatever you're going to be writing and whatever you think you're going to be doing. And then you get in one of these rooms, you get with all these other people, and you realize, holy shit, like there's some amazing, amazing writers.
Yeah.
They're so good at what they do.
I love that so much. It's one of the things that, like writers' rooms can, for me at least, can be stressful because I'm very anxious, but it is one thing that I love is just being around really talented people, just getting to be in the same room, getting to pitch the ideas, getting to make the thing. It really is super fun. It really feels awesome, to get to be a part of that process.
I will say one thing that's very specific with Wolf is it's actually like, so like the people in the room are amazing. They're super nurturing. It's just like this amazing group of people, but also the model of the company is very individualistic. Now, what I mean by that is not cutthroat, but what it is like at Wolf, what you tend to do is, because 90% of the stories are not serialized in any way, they want you basically to come up with your episode and write it like top to bottom is basically just you. And every once in a while you'll come back to the room for stuff, but for the most part it's just you going off and doing your thing. Right. And that is it's not what writers' rooms usually are, I gather. And, several different times over the course of the season, people have kind of pulled me aside and been like, it's different elsewhere. And, I think there are pros and cons, but I think part of the reason I ended up in this universe is because I did so much development, right? So like I'm used to creating worlds by myself and figuring out, shows, features, whatever.
That.
Yeah.
Now, I love how the negative of working for free turned into a positive of getting the exact right training you needed to be where you're at. That's kind of cool. And, it's kind of cool, at least. It turns out.
I mean, cool. and like, look, I am not good at this stuff yet. Like it is. And, I keep gathering that that's what the staff writing year is. Yeah. But I kind of couldn't imagine a better training ground. And like, it also, at least in the Wolf universe, at least on my show, has had a really interesting way of kind of like, how should I put this? I'm just going to be indelicate, squeezing the bullshit out of me. Like any shortcut that you want to take, or even anytime you just want to lean on the conventions of the show, like to the credit of all my coworkers, they sniff it out immediately. They call you on it, and they like, you have got to get inspired and you have got to do your thing. Otherwise we don't want it. And is like, so like my bullshit detector is so much better than it's ever been. And any bit of writing that I'm like planning to do on hiatus, I already like, it has already gotten so much better in my head just because I'm not taking the shortcuts that I used to. It's like I can feel myself just like jumping ahead in drafts and stuff like that. It's really I could not imagine a better training ground.
Yeah, it's true. I become a better writer after every single writer's room season. Like every time I become a better writer. Some seasons are harder than others, but you know, it's a real intellectual kind of like Olympics, at least for me, you know, to have to like basically just come up with that much stuff, like that many ideas. But this is amazing. I'm so excited for you. What's next for you?
So I mean, you know, if Lord willing and the creek don't rise, then we'll be looking at another season. Yeah. So hopefully, hopefully Law and Order comes back. That's the show, y'all. The OG Law and Order. You know,
I was gonna say it at the top. Ajani.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now you shouldn't. No, I don't know.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So if Lord willing the creek don't rise, then Law and Order will be back, and hopefully I'll be back with them.
That's so funny that you're like, oh, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise when you're literally on the most long-running show. Like, isn't it like in television history?
I think it might actually be second to SVU now.
Oh, okay.
Because it went away for 10 years and then it came back.
Okay. But so still, you're still
technically this is like season 2 of the revival.
Yeah, that is hilarious.
And then hopefully do some, like I have some feature stuff that I've been doing in and out, and with the hiatus, I'll be, you know, looking into finishing up some of those and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's just really like, I'm going to be on Law and Order as long as they'll have me, because it is making me so much better every day.
I love it.
And the people are fucking great. And, you know, other than that, I'll just do like feature stuff and whatever else I can, you know. Like I like to stay busy. I like to have multiple things going.
I love it. Super fun episode. I hope you enjoyed it. That's all I got for now. Until next time, get out there, get to work. There's no way I could do this podcast alone. I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to our editor, Justin Asher, and to our other production assistants, Jemima Lariston, Maya Racole, and Nicole Edwards.